Rookie class rankings are already out, and there is one list. Brayden Burries has checked in number one. Camille and I dig into the details coming up next.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. And today we take a look at the rookies this upcoming season and why Brayden Burries is getting some more mention on the local scene, or on the national scene, I should say. So ESPN just put out a survey of rookies this upcoming season and who is going to make the biggest impact, rookie of the year, and so on. So this was a set of questions that was given out to, we don't have any other context other than ESPN NBA insiders. So there were 13 total that cast their vote for these categories. There is one of them where Brayden Burries not only made the group, he checked in at number one. So we'll start with that. And that was the question of who will prove to be the biggest draft steal. So of 13 of these insiders surveyed, Brayden Burries received 6 of the 13 votes, checking in at number one. Number two on the list was Yaxel Lindeborg with 3 of those 13 votes. Then you had Darius Acuff, Caleb Wilson at number 4, and Kingston Flemings at number 8 pick. So Wilson and Flemings each got a vote, Darius Acuff 2, Lindeborg 3, and then Brayden Burries with 6. So I think it's what we kind of left Summer League saying, certainly locally, but you even started to hear more of it nationally too, of like, you know, this guy, we talked about the high floor for him, and he was a player that was going to be ready to come in and play immediately. It might be even higher than that. To get him at number 10, this is a pretty big steal for the Bucks, and that carried through into this survey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reason that you see people feeling that way about Burries after his Summer League performance, where he did make first team, all Summer League honors. He was averaging like 23 points, like 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a block during that time that he was playing in Vegas. So you could see the flashes of it there. And like we discussed on Monday, I think part of it comes in because of what he was being projected as what his NBA role would be. And a lot of the thoughts behind it was just kind of like the ultimate complimentary player. Like you heard the same thing with Yaxel too, of like, these are guys who I think if you put them on a team, like they can go and play right away. You put them in a playoff situation, maybe even if it's only 10, 15 minutes, but you would trust them on the floor. And the ceiling for him just appeared to be great role player. And him coming to Milwaukee was a spot, especially without Giannis, where people were kind of like, well, he was like the best of the last guards on the board from that category there, with Flemings and Acuff, so on and so forth. So, it makes sense the Bucks got him, but we're not sure about the fit. And then you see him in Summer League where he has the ball in his hands more, where they're using him in like a lead guard role. And you're seeing the efficiency. You're seeing just how he physically looked on the court, being bigger than some of the other guys, using his body to get to the bucket. And it caught attention. And I think rightfully so, because even for us watching, like, who cover the team, who talk about the team, fans who watch this team consistently, it kept being moments of like, ooh, like, oh, like, okay, like, didn't necessarily expect that, but like, I'm enjoying the process. So seeing others around, well, the NBA insiders who think that he might end up being one of the biggest steals or the biggest steal in the draft does check boxes for me. That makes a lot of sense after seeing what he did in Vegas.
We know 4 of the 13 insiders. It was Tim McMahon, our friend, Ben Golliver, Michael C. Wright, and Jeremy Woo. Were 4 of them that were in here. But yeah, and Jeremy Woo provided the write-up on Brayden Burries with that question too, and saying, it's not surprising that he was the last of all those talented freshman guards to be picked in the lottery, because he turns 21 in September. So he's significantly older than his peers by draft standards. Plus, he's viewed as a combo guy, doesn't have that true position at 6'4", but he's going to have a good opportunity to grow into the player that he'll become here in Milwaukee in their post Giannis rebuild here. And again, injecting what this team needs in young, moldable talent into the backcourt. So we talked about at the time of the draft too, that you can look at the age of Brayden Burries. You can look at what we just mentioned at the start too, the high ceiling that he carries, and kind of view it as a negative, that this is a player that is going to be more helpful to teams that are competing now. Obviously, the Bucks not in that category, we think. But I also, while I recognize that, I choose to view it a little differently and say, well, he may also be the type of player that you need to help you get to that. Let's turn this thing around quickly and start to be competitive, win now, and build a culture. Like, I would think it's easier to start to reestablish and build that culture with win now players and guys that bring in that mentality than it is with just, we're rolling the dice on 19-year-old prospects that, I'm not saying this is the case with Nate Ament, but may have had some questions surrounding them and work ethic or anything else. That's where it starts to get difficult in building the culture. So I think too often we can look at the age and ceiling versus floor discourse with a player and view it as a negative thing when there's a lot of positives in there as well.
There's a lot of positives with it. And I think when having those conversations, I remember the draft where the Bucks got Jabari Parker. And the conversation around that too was like, do you really want Jabari? Like, we think we already know what his ceiling can be because he's a little bit older, so on and so forth. And I'm like, all these guys are going to be rookies when they get to the NBA. They will all be experiencing this grind for the first time. They will all be still in a spot in their career where they're young enough that they are not their finished product. Yes, he might be 2 years older at the start, but once you get to the NBA and that clock starts of like, now what are you learning? What are you developing? How do you integrate yourself into this style of play? Can you rise above that? Like, that part of the development, I'm not saying they're all on an even playing field because it does depend on where you go, your coaching staff, all the other things that go along with it. But like, I just don't look at age as like the end all be all. Now, if the guy was like 28, like, that's different. Like, that type of rookie is different. But a few years where you're going to have to still experience this grind for the first time and get the development in, I still think that there are levels that these guys can hit. And I think that's part of what makes draft evaluation so difficult as well, because you're looking at guys who are not of a fully fledged product yet. They're not who they're going to be. And you're trying to predict and figure out exactly what it could look like. And I think at times when going through that exercise, the older players get the short end of the stick of like, we don't think there's much more development that you can get. Meanwhile, you are seeing NBA pros who have been in the league 8-9 years who are like, I just added this to the bag. Like, the game, the process is always the process. So I think that Burries being able to start at a little bit of an older age with a body that's NBA ready already isn't a slight. And if anything, could be a benefit for him going forward.
Were you team Jabari going into the
draft? I was so team Jabari.
I was team Joel. And the one thing that caused me to kind of go back and forth was just, again, like, we may be headed back to it now, but it was a different era of Bucks basketball. We're just hearing a player that highly touted, that wanted to come to Milwaukee and play for you was like, what? Maybe I should align with Jabari Parker, but I feel I came out on the right side of history there. There's a couple other questions that were thrown at those insiders. Brayden Burries did not register any votes for the others, so this was the only one. But I want to take a look at the rest of the questions and try to figure out, where would we slot him in? Which of these questions would make the most sense for him to at least crack the top 4? We'll get to that conversation next.
Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. And baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Very easy to play. You just make your free pick for who you think is going to hit a home run in their game. And if you end up being right, then you will receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And who don't like extra winnings? Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the entire MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday's games, whether you're following your favorite team or just keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep, and now you get the chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. You can ride the hot hand if you know there's a hitter who has just been knocking them out the park. You can go with that. You can go with a guy with a favorable pitching matchup, or even just a ballpark that you know tends to give up home runs. Choose your own adventure when trying to figure out who you think is going to go yard. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at fanduel.com. That's fanduel.com to play daily dingers and to make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB.
The problem of finding clothes that you can live in all day, be comfortable, and do whatever you need to do, whether it's just chilling, going to meetings, playing golf, being on the move, that problem has been solved by Cozy Earth. The everyday polo is the answer. It's lightweight, built to move with you, just easy to wear everywhere. I've got it on right now, and it's fabulous. Plus, the Cozy Earth Essential Socks, they're exactly what the name suggests. Soft, supportive, comfortable enough that you stop thinking about them halfway through the day. Plus, Cozy Earth backs everything with a 10-year warranty and hassle-free returns. So if something isn't quite right, you're covered. That makes trying them for yourself an easy decision. I've got the Cozy Earth Everyday Polo in blue and in black. Check them out at CozyEarth.com. Use the code LOCKEDON for 20% off. That's right, Locked On for an exclusive 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, please mention you heard about it right here, CozyEarth.com.
All right, so as we noted, there were no other categories or questions where Brayden Burries checked in the top four. But I wanted to go through what those were and get your take on which would you slot him in here if maybe it's not top four, but just outside the top four. So number one, which top pick has the fastest path to becoming an NBA superstar? The path for Brayden Burries is that we think it's an open canvas in Milwaukee, but I think that's a difficult one just because of the roadblock that appears to be in front of him in Tyler Herro and just a crowded backcourt overall.
I would agree with that. That's the challenge for some of these, where a lot of the top rookies are walking immediately into starting roles. They're walking into a lot of playing time off the bat. So they're going to get opportunities that Brayden Burries will not get, at least immediately, in Milwaukee. And in addition to that, I think some of those teams, like look at a Darren Peterson with Utah, a Utah team that has retooled and should be competitive this season. The Wizards should be better than what they had been. The Bulls are probably in that tier with the Bucks, if not below or whatever. Same tier. We'll say same tier with the Bucks. Yes. And then the Grizzlies are a team that made some interesting moves this offseason. I think they're going to be a really fun watch. But in that Western Conference, we'll see how high they can actually climb. So ultimately, looking at the four guys they had there, I think the biggest difference between them and Brayden Burries is just the amount of playing time they're walking into off the bat. So talking about the fastest path there, that's why I would also give those guys an edge, because they're walking into some different opportunities than what Burries is.
So Darren Peterson came in number one there with 5 votes. AJ DeBonce had 4 to finish second. I would choose Caleb Wilson for that fastest path to becoming an NBA superstar. Who is the most likely to make an all-NBA team first? Again, I would not have a strong inclination to put Brayden Burries there just because, like, we kind of talked about it on a recent show too of what is the ceiling. I don't know that his ceiling is all NBA caliber. I think it could be like, could we sniff all-star here? But that's going to take a pretty big leap for him and continued growth, which I don't want to say is impossible, but I think that's another one where I have a tough time slotting him into certainly the top 4, but even if you're telling me OLI here and number 5 or 6, like, still think you would look at some other guys like a Yaks even to say like the defense, and if he can continue to be a knockdown shooter, like some of those things would carry through. Guys that are going to be more apt to, you would think, scoring in bunches, like a Darius Acuff with the defensive questions and Mikal Brown. Like, those are guys I would slot ahead of him in terms of most likely to reach that designation. So I have a hard time seeing it with that one too.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, which kind of plays into the next question, which is more on that all-star level about which lottery pick will be selected to an all-star team first, which, as we talked about, think that that's somewhere that Brayden Burries could get to, of an all-star caliber type of player. But think about the guys in that lottery. And let me also just say, I think that this exercise is also a reminder of just how excited teams have been about this particular draft class and what can come of it, because there are so many different guys I think you can put into the answer of the question of which lottery pick's going to be an all-star first. Like, there are some guys in that list there where it's like, yeah, I can see it. But I do think the 4 that they have in this article, AJ DeBonsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Cam, pretty much your top 4 picks in that order. Again, yes, I can see the pathway for that to happen for them quicker than a Brayden Burries.
Up next was which lottery pick will be selected to an we just did all-star team. The highest long-term ceiling. This was one where I start to think about maybe. I'm not there yet, but AJ DeBonsa was number 1 with 6 votes. Darren Peterson came in second. Caleb Wilson third. But it wasn't Boozer at 4th. It was Mikal Brown, who just got 1 vote as the guy with the highest long-term ceiling. I don't think I'd put Brayden Burries 5, but I wouldn't put him 10. You know, like, now we're starting to move closer to cracking the top 5 in these questions.
Yeah, I would agree with that one, because again, if the on-ball shot creation from Burries continues to develop, and you can see that consistently from him, plus if he can do some of the playmaking ability there as well, like, you're looking at a guy that can pretty much do everything on the court, and that is exactly what teams are looking for at this part. Like, talk about the dribble, pass, shoot, defend, rebound, do it all. And Brayden Burries seems to be the kind of guy who can do that. So if for him, if the shot making is there, if the shot creation is there, if the playmaking is there, in addition to getting to the free throw line on the drives, the slashing, the 3-level scoring, the defense, if all that is there, that's a pretty high ceiling for a guard that can do all of those things for you. And watching the Spurs in their playoff run highlighted that again for me, of like, man, if you can have these guards that can just give you a little bit of everything, like watching Harper and coming off the bench and being like, man, that kid is talented. Like, I can see it for Burries if everything goes, you know, the best possible way for him in his development.
The next one is where I think I would slot him in. Which lottery pick will have the biggest impact on winning this season? I was a bit surprised Cam Boozer had the most votes here. Darren Peterson finished second. AJ DeBonsa, Morez Johnson, and Yaxel Lindeborg each received a single vote to finish tied for third. But this is one I would look at and I would say, yeah, you can talk me into top 5 for him because of the high floor that he brings with him. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a high ceiling as well. But the high floor that comes in, the mentality, the way that he's coming into something new too, and just the infusion of youth, the way that we assume he's going to play in transition, and this just being a different Bucks team that I think if we use the context of how Taylor Jenkins teams have played in the past, I think Brayden Burries fits precisely what we've seen from Taylor Jenkins with his guard play in the past. That this is one, I wouldn't say he's number one because the Bucks win total is going to have something to say about that too. But same story for Memphis with their win total. But this one we're getting closer to the top 5 for me.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm like, I can see why Burries isn't in this mix for this one. Biggest impact on winning, you mentioned already. The expected win totals for this Milwaukee Bucks team is not high. I think it's still like 25 or 26 and a half or somewhere around there. So it's not expected they're going to win much. But I also think part of what is keeping Burries further back on this list for me is just when the season starts, I don't know if he's a starter. We have Tyler Herro there. So I think that's part of it too, of just the opportunity isn't going to be there as much as it will be for a Cam Boozer, who is going to walk into a very big role for that team immediately.
I think the last one that's worth talking about here, so it is the last one to talk about because the final question was about the top 4 picks specifically. So the last one to address is which rookie landed in the best situation. He did not crack the top 4 here. It was Cam Boozer, Merez Johnson, each receiving 3 votes, 2 from Adai Mara, and 1 from AJ Debonsa. So we didn't have the full 13 votes here. If it weren't for the fact that you have Tyler Herro seemingly planted in front of you, if you're Brayden Burries, if we can just look past they traded Giannis and they're rebuilding, there's a lot to kind of slot with him in here, where this is another one that I would look at and say, not top 4, like 5, 6. I think, and like that's kind of the sense of most of this list of like, yeah, not top 4, but close to the top 5 in a handful of these, and number 1 in the one I think you would most want him to be of who's the biggest steal.
Yeah, and for the landing situation, I think part of it is that it's a new era for Milwaukee, so people don't exactly know what to expect from the Bucks going forward. But if you think about,
I think they just expect bad. Is there
that too? But like, if you really think about the coach and the situation that he's coming into, like Taylor Jenkins is probably one of the best coaches for that type of guard that Brayden Burries is. So like, I think coaching staff wise, like this is one of the best situations that he could have landed in. So I'm with you on this one of being like, I think Burries is probably like in the top 5 for me in that one of just like, I know it's all new, so we don't have a baseline to work from. But if you look at the Memphis history of what he did there, I do think that this is a pretty good landing spot for him outside of the fact that there is a numbers and rosters crunch at the position that he plays.
Yeah. So like, again, not unexpected to see a lot of these responses and results with this survey, but Brayden Burries clocking in, and I am a little surprised too, given like I don't like to stoke the fires on like, well, national media just hates the Bucks, but like it has been tough to skirt those allegations at times this summer with some of the things that we've seen written and said about this team. That part of me, as good as Brayden Burries was in Summer League, is still a little surprised that Yaxel Lindeborg wasn't the guy that was like, oh, he's the biggest draft steal, especially considering he was taking a spot behind him. But it just kind of reaffirms to me there's a lot to really like about this group. Again, if we level set the expectations for this year and we just want to see guys develop, build towards something, assemble that culture, and be a competitive team for 48 minutes, I think there is a lot to like about this group, and a lot of it starts with Brayden Burries.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. And that's part, again, I've been saying since I started really diving into this draft class of just like, man, there are so many guys in this class that I cannot wait to see hit the floor and start their NBA careers for real, for real. Like this upcoming season, I think is going to be one of the most fun overall NBA seasons we've had in a while, with the way parity is stretched out among the league, with the last of the old guard that's still hanging around and seeing what they can do, plus the new superstars who are coming up in their place. And then you have like these rookies and first and second year guys who are just starting their journeys right now. And there's a lot of hope around it because, again, it's all still very new. But, man, this class, I cannot wait to watch them hoop.
Yeah, it's again, like I've used the word excitement for this team, which is crazy when you think about losing your franchise's best player, winning 32 games a season ago, being projected to win fewer than that. But there is a lot of excitement with this group, and this young class is a big reason for it. So leave your thoughts on this list that ESPN put together, the rankings that they had, where Camille and I checked in as well of like, look, Brayden Burries only made the top 4 in one of these. We think if we could do it, we would put him in the top 4 of this one. Let us know if you disagree with any of those lists and where you would slot in Brayden Burries. Coming up on, I believe, tomorrow's show, we are going to tackle the free agency. There are, at this moment, I believe 9 teams that are projecting to have cap space in the summer of 2027. The Bucks are one of those teams. So how could some potential wheeling and dealing change that? What would extensions to other players outside of Milwaukee do to reduce that list? And what would that mean for the Bucks with next summer's free agency class? So we'll take a look at that. And again, Brayden Burries' development and trades that the Bucks made are going to factor into all of this, not just in the cap space, but how they use that cap space and what they look to do for continuing to build this team. So we'll take a look at those things coming up on tomorrow's show. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. For your second listen, we encourage you to check out the Locked On NBA podcast. Wes, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on everything you need to get you through the offseason here and be the most informed NBA fan. You can find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for today. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.